Welcome to Nookwood. I'm Chad Rutherman.
I'm JJ Artemis.
And I'm Andy Cannon.
And today we're going to be talking about Catherine. Catherine was a game that was developed by Atlus and was released in 2011. I was checking because I forgot the Japanese release date versus the North American release date.
Okay.
Both 2011, so inexcusable. On the PlayStation 3, and unfortunately for my ability to play this game, not on much else. It was released as a Games on Demand title on the Xbox 360, like a year later.
Oh, no, there was a physical copy because I owned it.
Oh, I know. I mean, there was a PS3 version that had a physical copy, and there was also an Xbox 360 Games on Demand version.
Oh, no.
You had a physical copy of the 360 version?
Yes, they have different cover arts. That's why I remember the specifically.
One has K Athrun on it, and one has C Athrun on it.
Which I'm just going to...
And that's how we should refer to them for the whole cast.
I don't like the Athrun. I was just going to
Just
go
call them K and C.
C.
That works, that's fine.
All right.
Sure. Anyway, this is ostensibly a puzzle game.
Kind of.
It's somewhere
in anime, and they're kind of like stapled together.
right. There's a visual novel portion of this that is based around your character making choices to reflect the situation that they're in, and then there's a totally separate puzzle game element, like a puzzle platform game that it plays like Hubert.
3D block climber? I have not a lot of experience with Hubert.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually play like Hubert.
No, it looks like Hubert.
Yeah, you are hopping on blocks.
That you can move one up at a time.
I never pictured Hubert's aesthetic as that, like, horrifying and panicky.
Oh, God, you didn't play Hubert 2016?
Oh, the reboot?
Yeah, the reboot of Hubert. That was
Hubert
terrifying.
Unchained.
Hubert Apocalypse. So, I had really fond memories of this game. Mm-hmm. I watched JJ play it, and I was trying to date this yesterday, because I knew I was going to talk about it, and I honestly don't remember exactly when it was, but we were both in school at the time, and you had moved out of the dorm. So I think that the earliest it could have been was 2000, maybe 2012?
Yeah, I think... like 12 or 13. By the dorm, you mean like the honors dorm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the hypothetical earliest is like late 2012.
Right. So, yeah. So it would have been around that time. And I remember having really fond memories of this game, which is why I was excited to play it originally. I think that a lot of the memories that I had came from the fact that I wasn't playing this fucking game.
Yes! Oh man, the month of my vengeance commences with Chad's anger.
Because I kind of fucking hate this game.
Oh. Okay. Go for it.
I'm just gonna keep... Alright. I mean, I think it should be fairly self-evident, as we go into actually discussing how this game plays.
Yeah.
Because I don't really have any issue with the game in its entirety. I lack a very basic mechanical understanding of this game, and am incapable of playing it. And so, as you were aware, and as you are now learning as well as everybody else, I made it to night 7, is where I stopped.
Okay.
And after night 3, I turned it from normal to easy.
Good.
And even then, I was completely stopped in my tracks.
You had an undo button, right?
I'm aware of it. I
Okay.
probably didn't use it as much as I should have, but I'm not capable of thinking far enough ahead for this game to function for me.
Okay.
But I don't know. You're the one who ranks this game among his favorites.
Yeah.
So, but I imagine that the things that I dislike about the game are not really the things that you do like about it.
And before you give your spiel on why it's great, I'm going to be the middle of the road guy I thought this game was pretty good, but has some like huge blemishes on it.
Yes. This is continuing the trend of Andy Kennick not understanding why I love the things that I love.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's not that I like completely don't understand why you love them. It's I can't believe you love them so much.
Yes. Yeah. Good distinction.
And he goes over to JJ's house and is like, I mean, your mom's a nice lady, but like...
Come on. Like, how do you love her that
much?
Okay. So, the reason why I recommended Catherine is because, honest to God, I really wanted both of your inputs on it. Like, my opinion of Catherine is so high, sort of as like a test of how much I can forgive a game in one areas based on it just being batshit insane. Like, it is. I don't think I've ever, in fact, considering the rest of my list, played a game like Catherine that I found is visually engrossing. Like, even the opening menu of Catherine got me hooked before I touched anything else with it so fast.
Oh, well, even beyond the menu, which obviously you're going to get into.
Yeah.
The whole opening of this game and the visual presentation of it with the positive, and I assume this was done for cost reasons, because the game was both 3D animated and also had a like 2D animation portion that presumably was outsourced to some like animation studio.
Unclear. Atlus does that a lot with some of the other games that none of us have played, right?
To the point where they might have like an in-house anime development studio.
Yeah.
Okay. Either way, so they have those sections, and I feel like that there are parts... The only parts that I think this game stumbles visually, and there really aren't many, are there's some scenes that I feel it's an odd choice to have switched art styles back to the 3D animation. Because there will be moments like... I'm not going to be able to name like a specific night, but like you'll wake up and it'll be like a 3D animation, and then 8 seconds in it cuts it into like an anime cutscene.
Yeah.
And then a little bit after that it'll cut to a different scene which is 3D animated. It feels like it would have been smoother to just play the whole thing out as one style or the other.
Totally agree. In fact, I generally found like the actual real like anime styled animation almost universally jarring. I can't think of a specific scene over the course of the game where I thought it was superior to just like the visual 3D style they'd already established.
Yeah, I prefer like the in-engine cutscenes better as well.
I think they look a lot less clean. It starts to...
So you prefer the anime?
Generally
like the hand-drawn?
speaking. Yeah. Like, it's just because the two are juxtaposed directly against each other, it makes the 3D animation seem kind of like, I don't know, it's a little fuzzier because it doesn't have like the detail, because it's not playing like a rendered video.
This was the first like 360 era game that Atlus ever attempted to make.
Right. And I mean, honestly, visually they did a really good job with the hardware.
Yeah, it's like more modern animes, like now that more of them have more money, look like very graphic and very like clean, like very like distinct highlights and shadows and stuff.
Yeah.
And you can't really capture that, or at least they didn't capture that anyway.
People have been
with
trying to
the
with cell
3D.
shading for so long.
Yeah. Cell shading is the only thing that's really come close.
Because
there's some that have very distinct art styles where like a cell shaded look actually gives that sort of like graphic novel.
Right.
appearance.
There's what's the name of the game? Ni no Kuni or whatever, the one that like where Miyazaki did like the visuals for it.
Yeah.
That is cell shaded, so.
Yeah. And it has the...
And even the new Zelda has that look.
And you can look as far back as like Beautiful Joe, which has like very much of a comic book aesthetic to it, and manage to hit those like hard lines. But it's literally not even close to how good it looks when it is literally just a rendered animation.
Yeah.
Right.
Like when it's like, look at this thing that a guy drew on paper. Like, it just looks so clean in comparison. The only thing that I have against it is I think the in-engine cutscene was incapable of rendering Vincent's mouth to be 12 feet wide, unlike the anime cutscene, where they're like, yes, that more, all as big as possible, please.
Wide and long too.
Yeah,
That's
huge
a good.
amount.
That's a good comparison because like a lot of animes are like that, where like really expressive faces, which you don't get in like the in-engine cutscenes.
Yeah. I assume it's partially a limitation of like it being dubbed, right? I heard some people complain about that, but it never really touched base with me. I think I'm just that used to dubbing that it's not a problem.
I'm the same way. I watched a review where they complained about that, and I was like, that's such a non-issue to me, because I've always watched anime dub, and when I'm not that big of an anime fan to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess, like, if they were making this game with North American audiences in mind, then that could be...
That is laughable.
Yeah.
Because Atlus
it's
is
really,
so distant from, like, the Western side of things. Despite how Western the, like...
Aesthetic is, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least, like, the cultural, like, appearance that's given to all the characters in this game is very Westernized, at least.
Yeah, Western eyes is the correct way to put it.
Yeah.
I forget...
They
if
do
ever
go
give
to
you-
that sushi bar.
That's true.
Good stuff.
And your apartment is like 3 feet wide.
Yeah,
in
and
the
he's
game.
got, like, the sitting desk and all that stuff.
But like the bar culture, all the stuff that they wear, like they're clearly going for that sort of like American tone.
Yeah.
But as with all things that Atlus does, I think what they were going for was just whatever the fuck they felt like on the day. That Atlus is really sort of inconsistent.
I know this is just, like, a thing that I actually have, like, learned more recently, is that, like, because of the way that, like, 3D models are made, you can't stretch them that far without them, like, imploding on themselves. So, like, that's also, like, you just can't get the same kind of animations.
Notable exception to that being Overwatch. I've seen a lot of the rigs. and
Yeah,
all
that's
the-
way...
Well, yeah, unless you
some of those.
specifically develop new technology.
and are billionaires. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you can pull a Disney and just make new shit for your game.
Exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, the takeaway there, though, is despite the fact, like, what we were talking about seemed largely negative, I think we're all pretty positive on the way the game looks.
Oh, yeah.
as a
Yeah,
whole. 'Cause,
it's
like,
just what you brought up initially. Like, the juxtaposition isn't that smooth and just seems kind of weird.
yeah, it feels a little bit harsh.
Yeah.
Is all. Because, and this is, I guess, kind of an unusual example for the cast, but it's just a recent example that comes to mind, is if you look at a movie like It Follows, it doesn't matter if the aesthetic is all over the place, as long as the aesthetic meshes and fits well within itself.
Yeah.
And Catherine is a great example of that, because very few things seem really out of place except for the titular Catherine, who just is supposed to seem...
Well, which of the two titular Catherines?
Well, I mean, the
C.
game is spelled with a C, so I'm going with that Catherine in this situation.
Okay.
Who, like...
The Catherine?
Yeah. Who is supposed to stand out in a big way.
Yeah.
But that's really... And, like, very few other things.
After talking about, like, the sort of juxtaposed anime stylings and, like, the 3D model renders of Catherine, I wasn't... When I said that I found the game striking, I wasn't even, like, referring to the actual, like, structured modeling of the game. I just meant, like, what those things were depicting. Like, the craziness
Like
of
the butt monster.
well, among other things. the
Like,
bug.
it opens up and he's, like, tied to a mattress with barbed wire.
It's not, I forget if it's a mattress or a cube.
I
but-
think it's mattresses stacked.
Okay, it's probably
Or
that.
something.
Yeah, but it's like a crazy sheep falls to his death long before
Yeah.
you have any context for what that means. And then you zoom in rapidly, and a guy literally shouts Catherine at you, and the person doesn't care in the background, and there's like a TV narrator discussing what's going on.
Before the TV narrator, though, there's this phenomenal, like, paper cutout animation scene of, like, depictions of different genres of movies. And it's just really good.
For the Golden Playhouse, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good.
What? Is that a thing?
No,
No.
it's not.
Like, do you think that they planned on, like, making more games with that intro?
People speculate about that. No one knows.
Because
'Cause,
they
like,
never did.
Because if they just never do, like, I just straight up dislike that they gave it that framing device.
What? Why?
Because it seems completely pointless.
Have you seen the true ending, though?
Oh God! But
I
that's
watched-
not why that exists.
I watched
I
some
know,
of it.
but it gives a little bit of a justification for it, though.
It's. Or maybe this is just me being an asshole and just not wanting to believe that's the justification for it.
Well, I mean, I don't think that it's the sole justification for it. I think that they wanted to tell the story in the way that, like, a late night movie would.
Yeah.
Like something that, because it is very much that kind of, it's outlandish The only time you can really take the story seriously is when you're actually in it. The moment that you step away from it for like a split second, you realize like the complete nonsensical aspects of it. But when you're actually in it, you're just kind of like, oh god, what would Vincent do in this situation?
Yeah.
Which I ignored completely and was like, Vincent needs to get his shit together. I'll take over. Like, I took the role of Vincent's mother.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. You're supposed to be invested in the story in the same way that you'd be invested, like, in a soap opera, which is the purpose of the framing device. So they can do all sorts of ridiculous nonsense and not have to present it as reality.
I guess
There's literally a watermark.
I
It's
know.
just
I don't like that.
The watermark?
No, I mean the watermark is fine since they went with
The
framing device.
But the framing device
But like,
as a whole,
I
you
think
have
the
issue with.
framing device as a whole is like completely unnecessary and doesn't add anything for me.
We never referenced, by the way, during our conversation what the True 2 ending was, and that's very obscure, so we should probably discuss
I say
Oh, right.
I don't know what you're referring to when you say that might be the justification.
Oh no!
I think
flat out refuse to be insinuated that I'm saying that is the justification.
Okay, I still
I'm
don't know
saying
what
it
you're-
lends a little bit of
Okay, I
credence.
still don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
All right.
I think I watched some of the True ending and was like, this is really long and I don't care, and then stopped watching it.
Sounds about
I
right.
think
Yeah.
I got to the part where they were like, Erica's a man.
Oh, no.
That's not
Incorrect.
the true ending?
That's just the true good ending. That's
the
the true K ending.
good ending.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
there's 8.
There's 8 main game endings
Yeah.
of like there's true, good, and bad for both C and K,
Okay.
and there are 2 additional neutral endings that I think are just good and bad. I don't know if
It's
true
the
neutral.
freedom ending, according to
Yeah.
Wikipedia. Page.
But what we're referring to is
Well, then
something.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Is it? Yeah, I didn't even know this existed either until I came back to it
Is
for
this
the
the
cast.
one that is like impossible to view?
It is possible. You have to do
Do it on
multiplayer.
co-op? Okay.
Yeah. There's what we're referring to is that in the Tower of Babel mode in this game, which another inexplicable addition, they just have like challenge towers for you to go through that they sort of present to you as if it's like not King of Fighters, but like what were those old like American Gladiator TV shows?
Like American Gladiator.
Oh yeah, it is called American Gladiator, wasn't it?
Like the Temple of the...
Legends of the Hidden
Yeah,
Temple.
Yeah, let's
the
do
announcer
that
shouts at you as if you're like participating in one of these television shows,
Okay,
and you
that's
go through in these like just somewhat random challenge areas that can also be multiplayer reverses. And if you complete the very hardest one, and you only unlock stages of this Babel Tower by getting enough gold medals in the game. So if you get all the gold medals and complete the hardest stage, you get like specialty endings. There's like 2 separate stages of them. I forget what starts the first stage, maybe getting all the medals or something. But it's like revealed that the Midnight Venus, the woman from the framing device,
Yes.
that is actually some kind of like fertility goddess who initiated all the events of the game and was also masking as the guy in the like chapel thing.
Oh, that's who that was.
Yeah, yeah.
See, I every time you go into the confessional,
Yeah.
you can talk to them before you sit down. I talked to them every single night before I sat down and was really sad when there was no achievement for that.
Me too. But either way,
Because there's like different dialogue each night. So I'm
Right.
like, this is definitely going to do something.
nope.
Nope.
You were just annoying that guy for fun.
Yep.
But that's not the important part of the true ending.
Right.
The important part of the true ending is that after you beat the hardest tower thing, she lets down her hair and like essentially comes to your in-game like representation of where you are living and playing the game, and just pretty much just wants to have sex with you, and that's like the end of the game. Like she was looking for a replacement.
You've been chosen to replace
Dumuzid.
Her old
Sure.
sex
Right.
slave.
Yeah.
who is proven unworthy.
That's
Correct.
like the
Yeah.
most Japanese secret ending I've ever heard.
Yes, it is.
Or maybe not.
I feel like
It's very Japanese, though.
it's very goofy. It's very
It's that
Atlus.
sexual repression just coming right on.
Yep, it's just shoving it right in your face.
Yep.
But it's really horrible, and it's a great example of the kind of shit where I'm like, how much of this can I ignore to like this game?
To be fair, all of the endings are pretty stupid. Like, it is not like there's not a satisfactory resolution among them because of the supernatural turn that the story... Because throughout the whole game...
Yeah.
And this is me editorializing, obviously. This is my personal opinion. I'm sure that some people love, like...
Get to the opinion,
the
Chad!
Catherine Good ending is clearly the best one. Throughout the story, there's a hard line drawn between the day and night cycles.
Yeah.
So you have, I use the night and night cycles. You never control Vincent during the day. But like the bar scene, it makes it like painfully obvious that no, Vincent does not remember the dreams ever. He just knows that he had a nightmare.
He starts to remember them a little as it goes on.
Sure. But then in the night cycle, you just have the puzzle game. So the puzzle gameplay doesn't feel like you're making any actual impact on the story of the game. Like, from your perspective sitting there playing the game, you're like, oh, this is the game part and this is the story part, and they don't combine in as much as every landing has a question you ask that can affect your meter.
Yeah.
Right? So you have all that, and then you have all the daytime stuff, and when you get to the end, they hint at things, and it's very explicit, like, yes, there's something, like, supernatural going on. There's all this, and it's like, but your investment as the player is in Vincent in the real world, unless you are just so suspicious about what's going on that you just immediately assume that, like, something untoward is, like, specifically happening. Because the questions you're being asked aren't like, oh, I should go with this girl because she's pregnant, or I should, like, get a priest and be exorcised. It's like, it's these, it's like, oh, it's the hot one, or, like, the long-term relationship. Like, it's presented in such a, like, a benign way to then, but you know, by the end of the game, it's like, what? Oh, somebody is a succubus. Like, classic, someone's a succubus. So you have to just choose to ignore it because the game gives you no option to interact other than to just, like, avoid see Catherine.
You meaning that the game doesn't give you the ability to, like, quote-unquote, choose see Catherine?
No, it doesn't give you the ability to, like, act in a way that... Because you know that something more sinister is happening.
Oh, yeah.
But the game cannot...
Vincent does not.
Yeah, no. Because he is unaware of it. Your choices ultimately feel unsatisfactory because you're not given... You know more than your character does.
Yeah.
And you can't inform your character's decision in a way that would be like... It's like when you're watching a horror movie and you're like, don't go in that room. And then you're playing a horror game and you're like, I'm not going in that room, but can't. You just have to go in the room. Like, it doesn't feel right because you can't impart your wisdom on the character that you're playing.
Okay, so I think I need a timeline here. Like, what is an example of the kind of agency you wish that you had over Vincent in the story?
Annie. I kind of agree with Chad, but I'll let him finish his whole spiel.
I mean, the spiel is over. The answer to that is, honestly, I'm totally satisfied with the amount of agency that you have.
Yeah.
I just really wish that the story had gone in a different place. Like, I wish that some third party,
different party.
Fifth party was somehow, like, more responsible, and that Catherine with a C was actually a human being and not a demon.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, all of the things, because, like, it doesn't feel like your choices ultimately matter, because at the end, even if you do all of the things to side with one or the other, something hysterically outlandish is going to happen instead of something that maybe you were, like, hoping would happen. It's like, even if... Because, like, my narrative going in, just for context, is I was like, obviously Cat K is a terrible relationship for Vincent. Because Vincent is not the type of person that can handle this type of other person. Both totally fine on their own.
Yeah.
Should not be mixed. So I was like, I know that C. Catherine is obviously crazy and not a person that anyone should have a long-term relationship with until she gets her feet on the ground.
Yeah.
But she represents an aspect of, like, breaking away from the norm that he's stuck in.
Yeah.
So I went chaotic pretty much, like, all the way.
Yeah.
Like, every decision I made was not necessarily for him to be Catherine, or be with Catherine with a C,
Yeah.
but just to be away from Catherine with a K.
Yeah.
But the ultimate ending that I would have gotten is him becoming the Lord of the Underworld. Do you see how there's a disconnect here?
You can't play the game in that way. You have to pick one of the two of them, right?
No, not even necessarily. The game really, and this is, I think, one of the biggest criticisms
how about
of the story.
Maybe most players will end up having to pick between.
I would say most players would assume that that is what the ultimate choice is, whereas my, thinking of it, I tried to abstract away from the game potentially a little bit too much.
It's not that we even take the classic because when we were playing video games with choice meters, especially of this sort of 5-year-old design philosophy where there's a red side and a blue side,
right.
We're predispositioned as game players to think that the best things that we get is all the way at one side of the meter, and whether or not that's true or good, the developers of Catherine, at least as displayed in the narrative, are absolutely assuming that you're going to be 50% of the blue side. The narrative at times doesn't even make sense if you're all the way on the chaotic side.
Yeah.
They're really made for they're buying into the idea that the first time players are going to have a slight bias to K because they don't want to be douchebags.
Right.
And, replaying this game is super damaging to your experience of the story because it reveals that your choices influence almost nothing that happens.
It's actually really... That's not unique to this game in as much as the detriment of replaying a story-based game like this.
Of course.
Because The Walking Dead, award-winning, globally acclaimed game, I've played through the first season twice, and the first time that I played through the game, I did it the way that I normally would play a game. The second time, I went through trying to be as big of an asshole as possible, and literally the only difference between the two is that by the end of the game where I was an asshole, everyone loved me and hated Kenny. So, I don't know how that happened, but yeah, it's I really wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
At all.
But
So I guess my experience was, I immediately felt this disconnect because I completely did not relate to Vincent at all. No one is going to really.
Yeah.
I mean, most people.
There's people out there who would relate to
Lucas.
He's the
totally
most
relate to
He's the most indecisive shit.
Yeah. So, but then the
Not
game
Lucas.
presents me with these, choices, and some of them happen, at the bar, something will happen, and you have to, answer a question, and it affects the meter, and,
Yeah.
some of them happen in the nightmares. So, when it's scenes at the bar, and I get, I feel like I need to, I should be role-playing Vincent, because it feels more like the TV show that they want it to be. So I'm do I answer this the way that Vincent would answer it? Or, the way that I would answer it? And then, in the nightmares, I feel like they want me to answer it the way that I would. And it's there's this, disconnect between, we're telling this TV show narrative with this defined character. Then over here, it's you influence it with your opinions. That clashed for me, real hard, where, I didn't know how to treat the game in a lot of places.
The night questions are semi-randomized and totally nonsensical.
Yeah,
Sometimes...
I actually didn't realize that until I lost all of my retries and had to go back to the landing.
That's what happens when you lose all your retries.
Yeah, that's what he said. Evidently, I am just basically the equivalent of a 3-year-old child playing this game because I couldn't do anything.
When
we'll get to my gameplay, not because but because we're on kind of a roll with.
Oh,
this
sure,
right
but
now.
just for future context, Night 7, is that the Imperium? What happens on Night 7?
I don't know because I didn't get through. I didn't play Night 7.
Did you
I
reach?
finished Night 6.
What happened on Night 6? What was the last boss you faced?
That was the bride, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So before there. So did you get stuck on the wall or something?
No, I literally finished the game and then said verbatim, I would literally rather be doing anything else than playing this fucking game. And we went and got food.
I'm sorry.
I, in classic hyperbole fashion, stated that this was the least fun that I've ever had playing a game. And I've played Goats on a Bridge. This is not true. But, like, Ghosts on a Bridge is less fun than this game. And additionally, I've played many games that are not as good as this one. But I did not enjoy myself.
So yeah, it's like, to me, it feels like the two halves are so disjointed. Because, like, I'll be like, though, like, you have this morality meter, and, like, you feel like you should be, like, affecting how the story's going.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get a cutscene, like, during the day where Kay, Catherine, and Vincent are at a restaurant, and he gets a call from C. Catherine, and he's just like, and like he's like thinking to himself like, oh, what do I do? And it's like, hang up the fucking phone. You don't have to talk to C. Catherine right now.
Whatever, you can just
like
using
like,
my actual phone.
It just gets,
let me give you an example of what happens when that exact situation happens.
You hit lock on your phone,
right?
Yeah,
and then put it back down.
There's so many moments like that where it's just like he's just like C. Catherine comes by and he's like, oh, what do I do? Like, that's like literally his dialogue.
That's literally his character.
Yeah.
It's just like, what do I do, guy?
So, like, why do they give you, like, this defined, like, wishy-washy character and then, like, ask you to make decisions to feel like you're influencing him?
I have no idea.
Like, they don't mix
no.
at all. It's like, that just bothered me the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'm of two minds on this.
Yeah.
One, I agree. I feel like there are a lot of situations that are played out in cutscenes that it feels like they're asking you questions and then not letting you answer. Like, they'd be like, he would literally think, like, what do I do here? And where it could have literally just, like, like, the background goes dark and the two chains come down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's fine. Literally anything, and just be like, do this or that. But then on the other hand, I like the idea that you are only influencing, like, the most basic things.
But they don't have any effect. Or seemingly.
Right. But, I mean, that's the
game assumes, as a first-time player, whether this is accurate or not, that you are experiencing at least some indecision about the situation. If you are decisive where Vincent is not, it is also wrecked. It is an extremely narrow path that the game attempts to take you down.
Well, the game also does a good job of inspiring that indecision.
Yeah.
Because, it presents you with things that are, like, things that seem like obvious choices and then adds complications to them.
Yeah.
Right. I was pretty, like, torn until the Kay Catherine is pregnant part. And then I was like, well, I don't think that he should marry her because she's pregnant, but, like, he should definitely not, like, keep seeing C. Catherine.
You never, like, got hit by the hook of maybe she's lying about it? That never draw you in?
No. Like, that's another thing I don't like.
Up until the point where it turned out that she was lying about it?
Yeah. I mean, like, I actually took it to be that, like, she legitimately thought she might be, and then she ended up not being. But maybe she just lied to him, I don't know.
Yeah, it's open to interpretation. You don't have her word to go on.
Maybe it's because we do this cast now, and I just think more critically minded about media in general.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
It's just like, I just saw through it immediately from the very first scene where they're in the restaurant together. Like, they're trying to make me not like her so that, like, C. Catherine seems, like, awesome. So, like, I saw through that immediately, and I was like, they're coloring Catherine to be, like, the one that sucks.
Right.
Yeah, so, like, I was like, I'm not gonna buy that. I think Catherine's, like, totally normal.
That seems a bit hostile to the narrative, don't you think?
No, I don't think so. It's like, it seems so deliberate, and I was right.
Yes, but I mean, if you enter the situation
I could see
I'm not trusting you, game.
What's even the point?
It wasn't that. It's just like, I just immediately saw the puppet strings.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just like, I was like, I think Catherine is a completely reasonable, normal human being.
Because she is.
And Vincent is an idiot.
I don't want to say she's complete. I think she's a moderately reasonable human being.
She's the most normal person in the game.
Because C. Catherine is literally the least reasonable human being.
She's just not a human being.
Right. She's the least reasonable demon of this game.
I don't know. Fashionable coat guy
And, like-
would seem pretty
Okay, fine.
You mean
But like
boss?
Maybe? I forget which one's boss.
He's the guy who stands behind the
in
bar.
the
No.
tuxedo.
He's not reasonable
I guess
either.
tuxedos are coats.
Thomas Mutton
No,
or something. is
Thomas
his
Mutton's
name?
his name, but the guy I'm
Yes.
thinking of is the dude who you sit with at your table, who's one of your friends, who has like the sort of like rounded haircut.
Orlando.
Oh yeah, Orlando.
Oh wait, rounded haircut?
No
Johnny.
hat. No hat, not young.
Johnny.
Third guy.
Johnny.
Johnny.
Yeah.
It was
Smoker.
Johnny.
Eat-pop.
Yeah. He
Toby.
seems... There's not enough of
T-Dog.
him for him to be abnormal. You just see fucking smoothness.
He's
He's
just like a
an anime-
cynical, like 30-year-old.
Yeah, he's
And
just
that's
like
not normal?
Yeah, they're
That is
all
normal,
stereotypes, but he's the stereotype that I picked up on the fastest.
Everyone's a stereotype.
Yeah.
Everyone. Because it's
Yeah.
a television show and it makes it easy for them to excuse it.
Right. I'm trying to think of like, yeah, pretty much anyone who had a spoken line of dialogue at one point or another, I made fun of it. Like, just because of the way that it's written, it's totally like reasonable within the game.
Yeah.
But it's just like, there's one scene where there's this couple that's just hanging out in the bar, and this woman is talking about like how she should go into recreational space travel or whatever
yeah.
that's called in the game.
Yeah.
And the dude was just like, "Oh yeah, they raised the price from $80,000 to $50,000. That's much more reasonable. Not to mention this and that. Not to mention marriage. Like, I don't know if we're ready for that." And I was like, "Why does this guy espouse every problem that he has at one time? Like, just respond to one question at a time, dude. You won't seem as much like a douchebag." No, the most reasonable person in the whole game is the narrator.
Okay, fine. But yeah, I also picked up on the fact that like when you answer the text messages, like Catherine sighs,
Oh, yeah.
like immediately as well. I was just like, they're trying to lead me down one path, and I'm not falling for it again.
Wait, what?
They're trying to, at the beginning, they're trying to set you up to like think that like Catherine is bad for Vincent.
And
Well, he
you're
is.
you're
She-
interpreting that,
And it's
that
to
when-
make the initial meeting of C. Catherine seem more alluring.
right. But the question that I have is the sigh sound effect that plays when you send a text message.
It's when you open one from
Every-
Catherine.
right.
Okay, Catherine.
Right. You were like, they're trying to make her seem terrible.
Well,
with this sigh sound effect.
With the opening cutscene, it opens with her like tapping her finger on the table,
Right,
like
yeah.
he's impatient with him, and then like that sigh is just like them reinforcing that.
Yeah. I don't understand
Sure.
why that's a bad thing. That seems like
It's not a bad thing. I'm just saying I saw through it.
even from the beginning, a lot of people sort of, like, partially because of the marketing, of course, misinterpreted this as like a true dating simulation game
Like
in the conventional sense, in which you're like an all-powerful man person who is choosing between his like various harem options based on what you do.
Yep.
When in reality, like the goal of this game was what's supposed to be is like simulate a conflict in an existing relationship and give
Right.
you some agency over the result of
I-
that conflict.
I just feel like
You
they
know,
should have.
you like, I don't want to stay with this girl, king of the underworld.
Yeah, it's just I
Just don't
think
know.
King of the Underworld, never an explicit choice in the narrative.
That's true.
I
You don't know what's happening until you're already king of the underworld.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that it was a really bad call to make Vincent so unrelatable. Then
I think it just like tells its story. We're talking about like
Yeah,
I'm
see,
sitting
that's
here
the
like
thing. That's-
defending this game that I hate.
it keeps coming back to that. It's like, why did they like want to go with such a choice-based thing and then also present this concrete narrative?
Right. I feel like I don't know. You probably have more insight on this than I do.
Like Andy's specific comment right now.
Right. But,
It's
yeah.
that is honestly, I think it's a serious problem. I am okay with like limiting on these sort of like narrative choice, even like very open games in the Telltale style. I understand the necessity to like really limit the amount of content you can put in these games and how hard it can be to justify throwing in scenes that players are never ever going to see based on like how many branches you put in the narrative and how much you loop it back on itself or not.
Mm-hmm.
But even by that standard, Catherine as a game is really narrow. It doesn't allow much deviation, and it seems to want to tell like a very specific story under lots of like very specific assumptions about the first time you play the game as an experience. The one thing I do disagree, that it's come up in both of your conversations though, is I don't think the delineation between the night and day is as sharp as you guys are putting it. It is very sharp, and intentionally so, but like they always bleed little bits of unreality into the bar.
I will go out and on a limb and say that it's probably less sharp for people who are not me. Because I got to the end of the bar scene and was actively looking for anything else to do so that I didn't have to go back into the nightmare scenes. Because, like, I so dreaded playing them.
But that means that you went into the bathroom.
Yeah.
And so you saw
he splashes his face. He's like, well, I'm seeing things.
Yeah, and the blood and all the nonsense?
Yeah.
That's part of what I'm referring to about the delineation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, what my original comment about it was in reference to the fact that it's literally two different games.
Yeah.
That you go in between. Yeah, I don't think that it is so... It's... The sharp delineation comes from... I'm like... We've got like some percussive stuttering going on. The sharp delineation comes from the fact that like even when Vincent is aware of things like that happening, it doesn't play into the narrative of the night or the daytime game at all. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense within the story of the game, but it doesn't lend itself to make the choices more meaningful.
I think that there is like a pretty hard disconnect, because I think you could take the puzzles out and and replace them with something completely different. It's the only thing that's making the bleed or like making them like fit together is the theming. They themed the puzzles to the story, and that's what's making them seem like they fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is not a like mechanics as representing the story game.
Like,
anyway, just stress.
Yeah, because it's like in a nightmare, it could be anything. It could be like a Hearthstone game.
Well, that's even that's explicitly referenced in the story of the game as well, because it the as referred to through 90% of the game, witch, the person who is causing the men to have these nightmares, is literally modeling the nightmares after the Rapunzel game in the bar. Yeah. So, it literally could have been anything. Could have been Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, how great would that be? You start, and, you're Vincent with the pillow, running picking up dots as, a baby chases you around.
Yeah, also great. Also, mostly just because of the theming. Although I like the puzzles. Oh, you'll be disappointed to know, by the way, how much easier the American version of the game was.
Oh, no. I was aware of this before even starting the game.
Yeah, I was telling him about it. The fact that the Japanese version doesn't have an undo button is just, insane.
You would think that literally anyone on the planet, no matter what country they're in, would have more things to do with their time than realize they fucked up and just have to slowly wait for the tower to fall down.
Yeah, it's so easy to fuck up too.
Oh yeah, incredibly easy, in insurmountable ways.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about how easy it is to fuck up a puzzle in Catherine? After the break.
Most effort ever at a break.
It's possible. I'm a little winded.
Oh God, are we in a? Is there anything pressing either of you for time?
No.
Oh, dude, I've got one hell of a railing-based story. Okay, never mind, Chad. I won't give you the railing story.
You can tell it after.
Save the railing story.
You guys won't care because you don't fucking care about railings at all.
Woo!
Alright, time to talk about the video game, maybe?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Okay.
So let's talk about the video game portion of this video game.
We should talk about the gaming aspects of the game.
So, at night, Vincent goes home, binges severely, which is hilarious because during the night you drink 3 beers. Well, you drink mandatory 1 cocktail, then 2 beers, and you're drunk. And then you stumble around and walk like an idiot.
Well, you could be drinking anything. It doesn't have to be beer.
Oh, yeah. I'm saying, at minimum, you're, alcohol content-wise, you're drinking 2 beers and a cocktail. And then you go home and are like, you know what I need to do? Is drink, 14 more cans of beer brand beer and get completely fucked up.
I mean, people could not be you and just not drink or even recognize that as a thing you could do. Could you imagine how much you would have hated this game without any of the little drink pop-ups?
I went the first 3 nights before I figured out how to drink.
I know better because my favorite part of this game is the effects about drinks.
Yeah, it doesn't tutorialize it until like the 5th or 6th night. It's like you can drink alcohol.
Right.
It's like on that little menu up at the top, and it's like in the middle, and I just didn't notice it.
That menu pops up if you just don't do anything for like 3
Yeah,
seconds.
and, like I know, but like it's like the fact that it's in the middle. Like I just never like looked at it.
Yeah.
Also, the other options are all fairly, like, mundane.
Yeah, it's like it pops up, and it's like the first one's like check your email, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do that. Hit triangle.
And then the others are like get up, which is once you do it the first time is not like you never have to like look at a menu for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then X is just like the natural button you would press to interact with something.
Yeah.
It's excusable, but I still think a little bit unusual that you did not notice the drink prompt, but I'm on your side here.
Yeah, I'm very sorry. It was great drinks. So you
they were
drink
like
yourself into
1,000,000.
oblivion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you fall asleep.
Yeah. And then an arbitrary time around 1 a.m. will pop up on the screen.
We always interpreted the like the clock ticking loading screen as it being like thousands of years passing.
I do, by the way, have no idea what that's supposed to represent. Like
what?
The passage of like short amounts of time. I don't know what that's supposed to mean in the game. The constant clock motifs between everything.
It's just like this much time has passed.
But why does that matter?
Well,
we know that you would have woken up.
Yeah.
I think that the reason that it's always like, especially with the loading screens and like the constant ticking,
Yeah.
and even the game starts with the like ticking and then being replaced with Catherine's fingernail, is basically Vincent is always dreading nighttime because he is having these nightmares, and so the clock ticking is just kind of like the constant reminder that eventually he's going to have to go to sleep and he's going to have the nightmares again. I think that's what they're going for.
That's a good answer to that.
Yeah.
All right. So,
and it also doubled as a great constant reminder that I will eventually have to play the nightmare segments of this game.
And you turn around when the door opens and all the sheep wander into the sheep hole.
It was a great visual, by the way.
Yes. Yep. And you've got your pillow for some reason. You're the only guy who gets a pillow.
The mystic pillow. Maybe everybody else has a pillow as well, but you just can't see it. They probably don't know that you have a pillow either.
Yeah.
Could be. I mean, it's obviously supposed to be your extra lives, but they never like make that explicit. There's no like you still live scene. You don't like fall on the pillow.
Right.
You just fall to your death, and then
that would have been kind of funny though.
Yes.
You're just like oh, jeez, thank God this pillow is here. You just get up, brush yourself off, like on like a pile of corpses.
Many of those corpses belong to Chad.
Yes.
Apparently.
A hilarious number of them. I was relieved on easy mode that you just get an absurd number of lives. I don't even know how I was generating them. I think that just like every time you make a move in the game, they're just like, congratulations, here's an extra life, baby.
Yeah, this is one that's very confusing, but a lucky inclusion is that every pillow actually gives you 2 lives, not 1. So even on normal mode, you end up with like unbelievable amounts of lives.
Nope, not enough lives.
If you ever get stuck in a death loop, like against a boss or something, assuming you can always reach 1 pillow during the death loop, you're netting positive pillows.
Right.
So you get ended up. So it's inevitable if you're even remotely competent that you get like 70-something pillows.
Your choice of words there is hurtful.
I'm sorry, Chad.
If you're even remotely competent. This is, God.
I didn't know it was possible. I didn't know it was possible to fail on easy in this game.
I never ran out of lives on easy. Like I said, my breaking point was just not wanting to play it any longer. The normal mode is when I lost all my lives. It was on the Butt Beast boss.
Oh, the Butt Beast is what got to you?
Well, no, that was just I was already struggling on the second level of night 3. and then was like, can I turn it to easy? You can only turn it to easy during the day. So I played the Butt Beast boss like 10 or 12 times, lost all my lives, had to restart, got played another couple of times, and then Andy just beat it for me, and then I set it to easy.
Okay.
And then proceeded from there.
Andy,
I think you also beat the bride boss, which I couldn't do either.
You were there, Andy.
I
You were
was.
at Ground Zero.
I was at Ground Zero.
What was Chad doing wrong?
It's kind of hard to explain. It's like, you know how, like, on the first stage, when, like, you didn't get the mechanics yet?
Yeah.
Chad never advanced past that stage.
I just never picked up on the mechanics.
It was like... I'm going to make Chad feel really dumb right now. But it was actually like watching a child try to play this game.
We sat down. I actually
warned
warned you about this because we sat down to play the game, and Andy was like, "I thought this game was really hard, and I feel like you're just gonna like sit down and just beat the crap out of it." And I was just like, "Oh no, this is exactly the kind of game that is not going to mesh with me, and I'm going to be unable to play it." And sat down, and my expectations were exactly met by my inability to pick up on the game at all.
Like, he would come to something and, like, wouldn't, understand what to do. And I was like, pull this block out, push that block over, XYZ. And then, like, I showed him how to do it, and he did it, and he got past it, and then died. And then, like, he'd start it back up again, like, the exact same place, and, like, would not remember any of that.
Like what I had just
And then
done.
would just start, like, pushing and pulling blocks around at random. And I'm just like, did he forget? I just told him what to do.
I literally did forget. Here's basically, like, the best... it's not even an analogy. My best explanation, I guess, for my inability to play games like this. And it's not specifically puzzle games, but it's games... maybe I'll get, like, a good comparison point as I explain this. When you're playing a game, or when I'm playing, like, a puzzle game like this, it is a matter of needing to both act reflexively because of the time limit, and additionally be able to think a few steps ahead to make sure that you're building a path to your destination.
Okay.
And I am incapable of doing both of those things. I'm very good in games universally at acting reflexively. Yeah. It is what I've been brought up on, and I can also think critically in a game where I have an unlimited amount of time. Right. When you combine the two, I completely lose any semblance of understanding of that.
Okay.
Of the ability to play.
That gives me hope for the next game.
Yes. I have no hope, but I'm glad that you have some amount of hope.
It's always very fun.
He also seemed really reluctant to hit the undo button for some reason.
Well, it's because I felt like the undo button was... First of all, you told me at one point that you should not consider the number of times you can undo because it's like a functionally unlimited amount of times.
It's like 9 or 10 times.
Well, I didn't say that.
Well, right.
I mean,
you said like you hit the
can
undo
undo
button
a bunch of times.
Right. And so I was thinking, like, okay, I can undo... Like, so it wasn't a limitation thing that I was concerned about. It was just that I felt like the undo button was for when I had, like... When I had gone to a point that I knew I couldn't proceed with. And the problem was if I undid a thing, what I would then be looking at is a situation that I still didn't understand. And so I would have to back up, like... I basically should just restart at that point.
So that's a
good
way to gauge his understanding, is he didn't understand the mechanics enough to even know when to use the undo button.
Okay.
Was not necessarily I didn't understand the mechanics, it's just that I can't do it. Like, it's just, I don't have the brain required to understand these puzzles.
Granted, this game... without the undo button, as I'm sure some people attempted to play it, would be hell, and that's not what I'm trying to defend. Like, in the American release of the game, you kind of end up treating the undo button like another game action, like moving. Like undo is not even close to a fail state in the language of the game. It's just like the equivalent of moving backwards.
Right.
It's almost like braid or something in that sense.
Like actually
And I
reversing.
say, yeah, like I used it very liberally.
Yeah, in fact, I think it's an even better comparison than I thought when I said it. Like, I used the undo button as much in Catherine as I used the rewind in Braid. But
I mean, because like
We'll stop.
if I compare it to like Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, which we're gonna bring up 2 episodes in a row. Hell yes.
That means we have to play it.
Well, yeah, don't worry,
now.
we'll take it.
no.
That is a game where it's like you jump and miss a jump, or you go to the wrong place.
Yeah.
Use the rewind function to return to where you were before, and you have a clear understanding of when you failed.
Yeah.
And Catherine, hitting undo for me was just putting me in a situation where I still didn't know where I was going from that point.
Yeah.
And it's like, because I wasn't grasping like the techniques or whatever, I would put myself in, I would find situations that had a solution that was explicitly explained to me through a technique, and I wasn't just, oh, I should use the tornado here. Because I looked at them, like, I watched the freaking, like, example cutscene of the tornado and didn't understand what he was doing.
What?
Like, I was like, I don't get, like, what is this situation that you're describing to me? It just looks like a pillar of blocks, and then he walks backward and pulls blocks out. It's like, I can't visualize that in the chaos of just a million blocks. Like, it's just, I can't see that.
God, I wish I was there. I'm not, though, and we should stop ganging up on you continuously, because I want to talk more about the mechanics generally.
I kind of agree with that. I felt like the little example cutscenes did almost jack shit for me. And, like, me figuring it out was all, like, a lot of trial and error. Because, yeah, like, they show it to you, and because these puzzles are hard to visualize and to, like, conceptualize how moving the blocks is going to work exactly. So, like, as soon as the cutscene's over, I've just forgotten what I just saw.
Not to mention the game is
And
visually noisy.
Right.
It's like, if you look at, like, the Rapunzel minigame, a.k.a. just the game, it's way more simplistic.
Yeah.
And so you can sort of look and just understand the differences in... It's like, I made a comparison to Tetris Attacks when I was talking to Andy about this.
Yeah.
And it's like, not that the game plays anything like Tetris Attacks, I was describing the difficulty curve, which I'll get to, but that game just, you sort of understand by looking at the colors, like, what needs to be done in the game.
Yeah.
In Catherine, all the colors just indicate another level of difficulty on top of something else.
Yep.
And so, it doesn't read well. It just reads as a mess. It's like a visual mess.
It's another attempt to stress you. That's why they made the active choice in Rapunzel to make it as clear as possible, because Rapunzel isn't like a stressful like versus puzzle game. Rapunzel is just a Rubik's Cube.
Right.
So they make all the things as clear as possible so that it's as easy as possible for you to grasp the actual, like, oh, I rotate the block this way, solutions that happen in order for you to represent it. In Catherine, things want to be noisy because you're supposed to be in a torture chamber.
Right.
In your case, more literally than they intended.
Right, and like I was saying, was you watch those little example cutscenes, and then, like, they're over, and then, like, it just completely, like, forget what I just saw. And then I go in to the level, and then there's just a giant mass of blocks, and it feels like there's infinite possibilities, and, like, you can't, like, it's hard to apply what you just saw and barely remember, like, in action.
God, I could not disagree more on this point.
It might just be the kind of learner you are.
Potentially.
But, like, I could not see someone do that. I got, like, kind of walled end of night 6, beginning of night 7, and, like, had to go to, like, a walkthrough to help get through, which is awful, because you have to, like, watch a couple of moves, pause it, unpause it, do those moves, and, like, doing that is how I learned the techniques. Like, I actually, like, did that for a few stages and was able to, like, play some more of them on my own. And then the end walled me again, and I had to, like, watch some more. But, like, yeah, I couldn't I had to internalize the techniques by doing them, not by watching them.
That does sound like a kind of learner situation.
Yeah, so like,
because that was always
lucky you
Yeah.
that you could watch those and remember them at all.
Oh, I remember the first time I went through this game years and years ago. I remember my mind being repeatedly blown as I kept like encountering the techniques, like the late game techniques, and how crazy and useful all of them were all of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, thinking about that, like, it's weird actually that we have such different approaches to how we sort of like understand and pick things up. Because JJ, you're like clearly like a mathematical. You have a mind for numbers in as much as like the things that you're learning are like you're recognizing patterns on the screen, whereas Andy's more visual than that, and I'm like completely verbal. Like I cannot pick up on something usually by just watching an example. So like this game is not for me in any way.
I'm sorry. I really do think, regardless, in a universe where I'm not forcing this game on the rest of you, I do think the mechanic set is ridiculously deep.
Yeah, I think that in regard to forcing this onto us, if I owned a PS3 in the like time around when this game came out, I would have probably gotten this game based on things that I had heard about it, but then would have played it, been really irritated by it, and then all else the same, we come to this day and you say we should play Catherine for the podcast, and I probably would have told you to go put your head up your ass. Because I would have been much more angry about it. The fact that I played it in a special case scenario actually makes me a lot more positive on it than if I had naturally come across this game on my own.
And I actually probably would have played this game eventually anyways.
True. But I didn't mean like still under the assumption that you would play it eventually. I just meant, do you understand enough about the mechanic set to be able to appreciate its value completely independent as a thing you'd ever like or interact with?
This is a point that I actually brought up just to Andy while I was playing, is my difficulty with this game obviously came from a lack of mechanical understanding.
Yeah.
I fail to see how somebody with a mechanical understanding of the game would find it fun. The game, in fact, seems so stressful and so just like repetitive and just painfully difficult that you have basically 3 maybe plateaus of understanding. My level, or most people's like tutorial level, complete non-understanding.
Yeah.
A mid-level understanding where you know what you're doing in the game, but the game is still brutally difficult.
Yeah.
Or savant like the people who got the true ending because they played the challenge towers.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't know how those people have fun anyway. It just seems like you have a disease and like you just have to continue playing really complicated games in order to satiate yourself.
And disease is a bit harsh.
It is a bit harsh. It's somebody who is really enthusiastic about it.
Have I told you guys or shown you competitive Catherine before?
No.
Okay. It is a thing people play at EVO. It is like it's still played like to this day in like really small numbers of like the versus mode in the towers where people will actually attempt to like outmaneuver each other. It's like mostly because you guys didn't do a lot of multiplayer and like the enemy sheep don't matter that much because they give you so many of the little
whole lot. 0.
They give you so many like little tag items that you can just kill them on all the lower difficulties, so it doesn't matter. But that like the mechanics of like being able to stop people's motion and like hitting them, and there's like some kind of like obscure glitch that lets you like just sit on them forever and kill them that ends up being a win condition. People like actually play this game like they would play a fighting game, which is cool to me.
I mean, it's a cool thing, but I feel like the comparison isn't really. I don't think that it benefits it doesn't benefit my argument, so I'm going to dismiss it. I don't think it benefits your side of the argument because I engage with fighting games in almost exactly the same way.
But no, I'm not.
Except
making an
fighting games
argument.
are casually entertaining, And you don't have to be at like an Evo level like performance to enjoy yourself.
But I'm
which
so
seems
far,
to be what Catherine
It
does.
is not.
This is my question.
I'm so far away from like the understanding displayed by people who like, or who play it at the videos I've watched at Evo, because the savant level shit is like having a deep understanding of how edges interact in the game,
which I did not even.
Oh yeah, that's not a thing that the game expects you to know to beat it. That is something that I've beaten the game 4 times. I've never beaten the game on hard, just for reference, also. But I've played through the game 4 times and still don't fully. I can't like visualize edges as a property because it's so abnormal to how you would expect gravity to work.
It really wants to bash that into your head in the tutorial level too.
Oh yeah, because you need some understanding of it, or you are fucked.
Well, this is the thing. In fact, maybe you can explain this.
Yeah.
Because the one issue that I was having, and I didn't actually feel like I was having that much of an issue with edges in terms of like creating platforms to stand on.
Yeah.
The issue that I was having is if I was pushing blocks backward and they landed fully under another block, they would still fall.
Yes.
And I never understood why that was the case.
Because edges don't work from below, ever.
But they work from below. Oh, so it won't lock if you push the bottom block to an edge.
No.
It won't. It'll fall.
Yes.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, that never... 6 levels into the game, I never picked up on that.
Oh, yeah, there's tons of shit like that in relation to the mechanics of Catherine that you just never get until a million times that you've played through the game.
Gotcha.
Like, I am still probably, by all metrics, like, actively bad, considering how much I, like, sit on the undo button, as I just described, to get through the game at all.
Right.
But it's, like, oh God, I'm trying to find the exact amount that I enjoy working through the mechanics of Catherine, because it's really hard to express comparatively. You guys know how much I love stressful circumstances in video games.
Sure.
As part of the mechanic sets.
Unless you do not have agency in the stress.
Correct. And you guys are also familiar with my history of sort of puzzly mechanic sets. How much I've gone through games like Tetris, how much I've gone through games like Fire Emblem, and it scratches a different itch to a certain extent based on it, but I can... Oh man, this is so hard to communicate. An example of like a mindset that I would go through in a Catherine level, especially one of the earlier ones where it's mostly just sort of a flow state, I would see circumstances and attempt to like recognize and apply memorized techniques to them. Like, for example, I create a staircase between 2 floors by doing the like pull one out, get on top of it, pull the second one out, go to the side, pull the one to the side of the left, forming a 2-step, and then I will like keep in track in my head the number of like empty spaces to the left of that staircase I have, so that I know that if I have to do the tornado thing, how many like free spaces I have, so I can count the number of blocks ahead of me. Like, I've got to move up 3 stairs. I remember I had 4 spaces of empty space behind me at the very end of this ladder, so I can just keep going up and down the staircase and do 2 consecutive pulls to get like the correct number of stairs. And it's just like rotations like that and like constant memory issues. That is the mechanic loop for Catherine that I go through that made me love it.
That seems like completely foreign to me. Like, I don't understand how that even presents itself within the game, because I kept running into situations where, once again, zero mechanical understanding, could just be a thing that I was not seeing.
Yeah.
But it's like, I would run into situations where there would just be so many special blocks that I couldn't figure out how to even make like a 2-step, like pull something out and then move it. Like, it just seems like Andy watched me one time go through the same like situation like 8 consecutive times and do the same thing each time, but then one time I went too far to the right and just slid off and fell to my death. And I was just like, I just forgot that ice blocks did that, like in that moment, because I couldn't like process those being there in addition to repeating an action that I'd already done before.
Yeah. It scratches that similar itch. It demands the processing from you constantly, and it's the source of the stress, other than like how the game is visually presenting itself to you in a stressful fashion.
Right.
You have to just be the stupid robot guy who is just constantly trying to like through the death cycles have like memorized tracks. Because you keep getting into these death loops in Catherine, and it creates, because the blocks most of the time are randomized, you can use the same solutions to the earlier problems. So assuming that you find solutions and you get past them, you're always making progress. So it eventually just becomes like an automated behavior, like do this. It's like moving the Rubik's Cube around to a certain extent, because you might know a technique to get this far, but you might forget something else, assuming, again, you're not the savant guy.
Right. But see, that's the thing, is like, I mean, this is just a difference in game, I think, because, like, I'm getting in, like, flow states are, like, a pretty, that is a, like, understood video game thing, where people will just hit, like...
But I don't mean just flow states in the same way you'd have a flow state in, like, a reaction-based RPG. A flow state that I was describing
That's,
before...
like, not even the closest thing I was thinking of.
I know. I'm meaning it's just a memorization loop. It's just getting...
Right. It's like Guitar Hero, is the comparison I was going to make. Once you start to learn a song in Guitar Hero, you don't even need to look at the track anymore. You just play the notes as you remember them. And this game was, like, so far away from me even getting to that, just because of the number of special things. But
the only...
It's because I'm a special thing.
As a guy who's been through this game, like 4 times, the only blocks that truly, like, of types that truly throw enormous wrenches into the kind of shit that you're doing are bomb blocks and black hole blocks. I don't even know if you ever encountered black hole blocks.
I never encountered either.
Okay. That's
Ice
bad.
blocks was so bad that, like, I couldn't even imagine proceeding past that.
Ice blocks is stop trying to move on the top of the blocks and just hang always. That's ice blocks.
I hate hanging, though, because you go around the corner and then your controls reverse.
Well, don't go around the corner.
At one point, I was stuck trying to get back up on a block for, like, an embarrassing amount of time because I kept going backward and then coming back around because the camera only tilts.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't rotate.
The camera is real bad.
So
like,
once
late
you
game...
get to the bag, it's just a crapshoot if you know which way you're going.
Yeah. It always resets if you ever pause. They say that in the tutorial, but it's definitely an example of the kind of thing that you would never remember.
Right.
Like the sort of, you expect the controls to just do what you wanted to. And with the exception of up always being stand up, they just never do when you're trying to do the sort of hanging stuff. And yeah, they sort of hint in like one level where like you can be really good if you recognize how important it is to get in the back of blocks, but it's kind of only relevant to that level ever, thankfully, because I don't know why they couldn't fix the camera issues. It seems like it'd be really easy
to just have the camera rotate.
Yeah, just free it up more and have it always snap back to the front when you let go of the stick.
Right.
But they just didn't do that, and I don't know why.
It's questionable.
It's very questionable. Andy, you like video games?
No.
Okay.
All right.
I say my experience with the mechanics are somewhere in between, like several steps above Chad, but still like until like the late game would still like be doing the stages and like look at the stage and it just looked like a big wall of blocks.
Right.
And like I like would not know like where to begin. And once I like started, you know, using tutorials and like really like figuring things out, I got to a point where like I could like look at the stages and like assess the situation and be like, I gotta do this to get up. I think I never quite got to the level of your understanding where I have this many blocks behind me and I need this many blocks to get up. I have enough space to do this and that. But that also might be just because I don't think about things like that. Like, I more just, like, looked and, like, that's enough space behind me to pull this out enough times. Like, I'm not, like, thinking in numbers. But, yeah, so I think I do appreciate, like you were asking earlier, I do appreciate the deepness of the mechanics, but I would almost say that they are too deep for its own good. Like, I think it's so deep that I got 90% of the way through the game and felt like I didn't understand them.
Right.
Like, it's so... There's such a barrier to entry on the puzzle mechanics that, like, you almost have to play this game through twice to, like, really get, like, a full enjoyment of the puzzle part.
Well, they're hoping that you don't get anything close to a full understanding on the first go-through, and that's why they keep, not just as a difference in kind, but they just keep reintroducing new things that make you have to, like, reset your understanding of the games. So you can't just, like, Inazuma your way through everything early.
I guess that makes sense, but, like, that makes so much of the game, like, once you hit, like, that middle chunk, it feels like such, like, a chore to like play through the levels, like. Because, like, you're like, oh, there's another night before the boss battle. Like, the puzzles would start to feel too long, and then it started to feel like there were too many stages within each night. And it's just like, I'm not enjoying this enough. Like, you know, like, I hit
madness.
I hit the ceiling, like, I felt, yeah, like, I ended up feeling like, in terms of the puzzle half of the game was too long, and that the stages themselves were a bit too long for like what it was worth for me.
Yeah, I
feel like if I played it through again now, understanding the game, I wouldn't feel that way.
For what it's worth, I changed the game type to easy from between nights 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And night 4, as you might remember, only has 2 stages.
Yeah.
We thought, like, oh man, does knocking it to easy reduce the number of stages in each one? This is so much better. Because 3, like, it's just so much. Like, the how long, the HLTV.com how long to beat time for this game is 13 hours. And it took Andy 17, and if I was playing on normal and just earnestly tried to go through this game, this would be like, it would take me longer than it took me to beat a certain other game that we're not supposed to talk about. And it's like, oh my god, it's too stressful for that much time.
Yeah, I guess the best way I can think to put it is like, I don't, like, it feels way too much like I'm just trial and erroring rather than interacting with the puzzle mechanics. Like, I'm just like, move, oh fuck, that didn't work, undo, like, until like I just reason it out. Like, too much of the game was like just trying something, fucking up and losing, like, until like I find like before the light bulb turns on.
I can't sympathize. It is impossible for me. Granted, again, 4th playthrough, can't get that much in my mind in the history. If there was ever a portion where I faced like a huge, incomprehensible wall, like you guys seem to be describing as a common occurrence, I would literally just look at the game for like 3 seconds and then pause it and then just think about it for like 2 minutes.
That
Ooh,
right
yeah,
there,
literally never even thought
no,
to pause the
it's
game.
not even that. It's like, that's so, like, it gets, once again, it comes down to like the kind of learner we are, the way we think about stuff. I could not pause the game and then like accurately think of how the blocks will behave. Like, I could not reason through one of these puzzles in my head.
Okay, well, just to move on from this,
yeah,
because like I think that we've reached a point where like it's where none of us are speaking the same language about it.
Yeah, this is where like the nuclear warheads would go off in the
Right.
international meeting.
There are 2 things with the puzzle, like, which I'm willing to acknowledge some people could conceivably have a little bit of fun doing.
Well, I do think the puzzles are fun once you like get the mechanics.
Chad goes,
Yeah, like, it just, my problem is I think it takes way too long to get to that point.
But there are 2 things that I actually think are not good design here. And while I think a lot of it is good design, I have an issue with, 1, their introduction of new mechanics, and 2, the movement in the game I felt was just completely impossible to like deal with. Because we'll start with the movement because you seem a lot more confused about this.
yes.
The movement, in my opinion, it seems to be just too fluid, which seems strange, I guess, to say. Like, when I'm playing a puzzle game like this, you expect, like, because when you tap with the D-pad, if you tap one, you'll go to the next block.
Yep.
It's like the bare minimum movement. But if you hold the direction, you'll just keep going, and then it's difficult to predict if you're going to stop on the block that you're on or if you're going to keep going to the next one. So, worst case scenario, you, like, slide off an ice block, or I guess, like, hang or something.
Yeah.
So not usually like completely detrimental. But my issue that I was having was kind of being able to do that because of the amount of time that I would have in a situation. There was a part that I knew how to how to move on.
Yeah.
Like, I had a solution and was concerned that I just couldn't do it fast enough. Like, I did it once and then kept going, and then died, and then was like, I don't know if I can do this again. But yeah, I did it like 8 more times and died attempting it because I just couldn't move fast enough. In addition to that, there are things like the trap blocks, where like you move over them and they take like 100 years, and then the spikes come up, and then they're broken forever. But it just felt like sometimes I would run across and turn around and come back, and it would go off and everything would be fine. And then other times I would run up and turn around, and he would take just like a little bit longer and die to it. And that gets kind of frustrating because I guess there are probably like an infinite number of solutions to these puzzles, but like...
No.
Okay, it is very... Okay, that's good. Because I really thought that, like, I was just not seeing something.
No.
It's, like, very...
But yeah, it totally
described.
feels
Yes.
that way until, like, the game clicks with you.
Okay.
The game narrows its possible solutions very dramatically the farther you go. To the point where at a night after you quit, there's a level that's just like... You are given, I think it's 5 high. It's the only level of the nightmares where there's functionally no time limit, and you're just given a thing, a Rubik's Cube to go through. But it's just 5 tall stacked blocks. It's 5 stacks of 5 blocks, all at a corner to each other, and it's just figure out how to get it to the top.
Up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well.
But it gets much less sort of open-ended as it goes on, and hopefully, I'm assuming because they're accepting that you're fucking up a lot early game, because everyone will and does. But as for like the fluidity of the movement, that was the initial discussion point.
Real quick, the point of my whole thing there about like them having like prescribed solutions, is that just the idea that they make you essentially run across a line of trap blocks and then about face and go back to the previous one, it feels like that should be a lot more precise if they're going to force you to do it. Because if you perform perfectly up to that point and then just get fucked over because you thought you had turned around faster than you actually did, seems a little unnecessarily cruel.
I could be... They're walking definitely a tightrope with the design here, because they're attempting to design the movement such that you could, instead of controlling it like a joystick, just control it with precise, distinct D-pad motions and still be fine. Like, you could, and you probably might have done this accidentally as you started to go through the game more, it sometimes becomes easier to just hit the D-pad like 3 consecutive times
to get 3 blocks
than holding the D-pad for that duration. Mm-hmm. And they want to make sure that's a possibility, but they don't want to force you into that because time is always a factor in the puzzles, and they want to give you the option to go faster and be less controlled if you want to be.
Right.
The problem is that most people's natural inclination in that situation is to hold the button down, which is actually in Catherine the like, I'm doing as fast as I can, crazy kind of imprecise motion, and not what should be your default of just pressing the button multiple times.
Yeah, and it never really tells you that. In fact, up until now, I didn't realize that you could, like, cue movement. Like, you could hit left 3 times, put the controller down, and your character will move 3 blocks.
Well, it's not cute, it's just that you happen to move fast enough that you can do that. It's more like, again, Guitar Hero.
Okay.
It's like, hit.
There's a big difference there, because pressing 3 times... and, like, just having, like, he pressed it 3 times. Okay, alright, whenever he gets the next block, move to the next one.
Yeah.
Until 3 have been used up. Is a lot better and a lot more precise than, like, just, having, like, a trigger point. Like, if you were at this point on the block, then the next press is going to move you to the next block. Because that's the difference, because... I guess this is kind of a weird fighting game comparison here.
Yeah.
When you're doing a special move in a fighting game, and you do quarter circle toward the square, you're pressing down, diagonally down and right, and then a button input, and the game just reads your inputs in a row and says, okay, do the special move. Whereas, if it's fluid like that, then you end up with all of the imprecision of the human body fucking up how you want to move. Like, I don't really know how to explain it, but I tried doing what you were describing, but my button presses were too sloppy, too fast, or too slow to accurately move to one place and then back as I pressed it.
I'll weigh in here, and I just want to say that I totally called this yesterday. or whenever we were playing.
Yeah.
I agree. There is something weird about the controls. Like, it's something about their sensitivity. Like, even if you know exactly, like you've said, you've gotten into a death loop and you know how to progress so far. Like, it's so easy to, like, accidentally either, like, push the button a little too or a little too hard or something, and, like, he goes one too far, or, like, he just hangs off the edge, or he grabs a block you didn't want him to, or, like, you push left and grab, and he goes forward and grabs the block instead. Like, there's all these, like, little mistakes you feel like you're making because of the controls.
And they add up, especially at the time.
And it's like it's hard to like describe exactly what it is.
Yeah.
There's something I think with the sensitivity of the D-pad.
For reference, I'm sympathetic here. I'm just trying to say that if this is a core, like a design problem, it's really a core design problem.
Oh, yeah.
Not just like they had the time 1 second too wrong on the D-pad.
Right.
Because you need both. You need the precision and the speed based on the way that they've designed the game.
Yeah,
Would it have been... This is a complete hypothetical.
Yeah.
But would it have been too inconvenient as a player to literally map it precision on D-pad, use the control stick to run? Like, you have actual fluid movement with the control stick and then use the D-pad to move one block at a time. Yeah, like, would that be too, like, inconvenient as a thing to do?
That is what it is. You can use the control stick to move in the way you're describing.
But it works in the same way that the D-pad does, whereas if you, like, flicked the control stick, it would operate the same way as pressing the D-pad. Like, it's the same movement controls mapped to both analog and the digital, like, input of the D-pad. It just seems like there would be some better way to, like, to organize the movement.
They could... It would, at least if they did it that way, give them the freedom on the D-pad to make the presses very distinct.
Yeah,
Like, you
very
could not
rigid.
hold down the D-pad. There could be, like, multiple seconds of break before they would even accept inputs if they wanted to delineate that way.
Right.
And I'd be totally game for that. Because, like I said, I'm actually sympathetic to this complaint. It's something that happens all the time. Like, I'll still die to spike traps in the same arbitrary ways that you guys were talking about. I just care less.
I had one other thing, though, with the way they introduced mechanics
Yeah.
that I mentioned.
I think this is maybe our most legitimate like criticism of this game,
Yeah.
other than the controls.
The one that I can specifically remember, because this is the freshest in my mind, is the ice block thing.
Yeah.
When you get to the first landing, they explain, like, oh, you should crawl on the ice, like, side hang. You should hang on the ice so as not to slide, and you can just move left and right freely. But by the time you get there, and not only that, they also explain the fact that you, like, if you push a block on ice, it'll just keep going.
Yeah,
but
you
if
can only
pull it, you
pull,
can pull
yeah.
one. But by the time you've gotten there, you've already had to do that a dozen or more times. So,
Really?
yeah, like, because there's an ice block
You do
puzzle.
a stage before the first landing. So you have to just do the first ice block stage with no tutorial,
Yeah, in fact,
no techniques.
this is verbatim a direct quote from the narrator. There are ice blocks on this stage. Watch out.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
I was like, oh, watch out? What is that? Like, there's a brief explanation when you first get in where he's like, this could, like, you could slide off the edge, causing instant death. And then you're like, good, instant death, great. I know not to slide off the edge.
Yeah, so yeah, that is like seems like a huge oversight that they drop you into a level before they give you those, like, techniques.
I
There's
agree.
a certain intuition about, like, how an ice block would behave.
Yeah.
But, like...
Your intuition is not,
is not to hang with your fingertips on
Yeah.
ice. That seems like
Right,
you
and
would
like,
fall
oh, I
immediately.
can pull. Like,
Yeah.
both those things are not intuitive at all.
No, yeah. It's kind of unusual. Yeah, that was one of the things where I was playing it, and I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, and it was like, just hang. And I was like, oh, it would be nice to know this. Like, before.
Yep, totally fair criticism on that point. Luckily, none of the other blocks really limit your movement in the same way that ice blocks do later when they introduce them. So at the very least, it doesn't compound itself later. Because, I mean, like bomb blocks, you kind of know what's going to happen in that circumstance.
Right.
Yeah.
What do they do?
You step on them and it activates like a timer, and then they blow up
Yeah,
after a certain amount
the
of time.
edge of the block is like a visible fuse that you can follow, so like when it gets back to the corner that it started at, it'll explode and damage all the blocks around them and turn them into crack blocks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's a big problem.
That seems like it might be.
Yeah. As many things in this game are.
A big problem. Catherine, a big problem. This is the sitcom that this spin-off of this game.
Because right now the game's not really a sitcom, it's like a late night HBO show for weebs.
Right, basically.
Oh my god.
So do you have anything pressing to discuss past two guys who were bad at Catherine complained
Do you want to talk about the Inazuma technique?
No, I don't want to talk about the Inazuma technique.
All right.
You
want to talk about the boss battle?
It's the one that lets you go up infinitely. I want to, at the very least, talk about the use of language in boss battles.
Sure.
Yes, Chad, there's a technique where as long as you have a flat wall in front of you, you can just ascend any height you want forever.
Oh, I don't think I've ever been in a situation in Catherine where there was a flat wall in front of me.
There's multiple levels who the entire shtick is just a huge wall. Climb it.
Wow. I don't think I ever saw... And on easy, I saw a couple of flat walls. I used the pyramid technique for that. I don't even know if it's called the pyramid.
The pyramid technique was like my go-to for
Right.
a while.
Is that the one where you
Just
climb
pull
up?
out
You pull out
decreasing
3,
number.
then you pull out 2.
Oh, yep.
Then you pull out 1, and that was like so ingrained in my mind that like pulling out like 1 and then pulling out another and then pushing it out from underneath like didn't even like register in my mind as something like I could do. And then like once they showed that like the technique and the landing, I was like,
Yes.
you mean I don't have to stack them like a pyramid?
Because all the crazy edge shit, and those were the
Yes.
moments that I kept happening. But we're done talking about that.
Yes.
We are instead going to discuss, at least first for me, which you guys might not care about because you probably want that persnickety, and we're instead busy being filled with rage.
Persnickety.
The use of language in the game, I fucking loved. Like the specific way that they worded shit all the times in like slightly off-kilter ways that kind of annoy you, or to kind of again accent that the game's like a television
Give
show.
an example.
As in, like, he is the killer.
Yes.
Do not die.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
That's
like
I actually was
one
a big
of my
fan of
favorite
that.
things. Yeah. Doom's bride has appeared.
Yeah.
It is the killer. Do not die.
Newsflash. Fuck you. Yeah, there were a few things that I kept going back to.
But yeah, the writing is one of the best parts about the game.
I would argue the best part.
Well,
about
the
game.
music might be the best.
The music
part.
is really good.
The music and the writing are great.
There's an intro level in Imperium.
If I was hearing it in this game, I was enjoying it.
There's an intro Imperium level, which I think is night 7 for you, where you just like you get up on the top after one of the landings, and you're like, the fucking blocks! I'm gonna climb the shit out of you! Or just like this like weird aggressive swearing against the like crazy ethereal madness of that it's always trying to present itself as some kind of like otherworldly godly influence to you.
Right.
And the constant intrusion of the narrator in really like mundane ways and horrifying situations, and even the sort of like similar to Life is Strange, the use of like slightly wrong youth language whenever people are trying to like discuss stuff with you at the bar, especially the blonde kid. I kept getting like weird vibes from Toby all the time.
I loved Toby. Okay, we've discussed how well written this game is.
Yeah.
And I felt like the moment that it really sunk in that the game knew what it was doing and like it was trying to create a level of dissonance within itself in order to keep you like feeling sort of uncomfortable is when the game had gone on this very long stint of just everything bad happening in a row.
Yeah.
AKA the whole plot of the game. But this is like a particularly long stretch of time where like it was I think the day immediately following when Catherine shows up at the apartment, K shows up at the apartment with C there for the first time, right?
Okay.
And you go to the bar and no one is there. And it's just very... well, Johnny's there, but he's at the bar and you're sitting alone at the table.
Yeah.
And so you have this whole sequence where it's just been, like, really negative nightmare sequence, almost getting caught, pregnancy confirmed
Yeah.
for Smash 2012, and then you're alone at the bar. And then you get a text, or 2 texts in a row from Toby, and he has this whole thing that he's written to Erica and assigned it to Tobias, and then he just sends the other text that's sorry, please disregard that last text, T-Dog. And he is just... and it's just this perfectly timed comedic moment in the middle of the complete downfall of your mood. And it just right there is where I was this game has its timing down really well.
Yeah. Related to that, how did you guys feel about Erica as a character?
I feel like she was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was fine. I think the fact that they made her transgender seems really dumb. And, not because I have anything against transgender people,
right.
But, she's clearly just female. She's modeled as a woman and has the voice of a woman. And I feel like they made her transgender just as a joke. It comes off that way. Because,
I did not get to this point in the game, so I don't actually know how it was handled in-game.
It was handled shittily in-game.
Yeah, it's just, because, Toby dates her. And, he loses his virginity to her and then finds out later she was a guy.
Right.
And I feel like her being transgender is just for that joke.
I think prior to, they have to make it comedic in the last scene because you learn about this in the, true K ending. And again, could have placed it in some other context in the game. But with the exception of the moment when you finally get it confirmed, all of the hints prior to that point are not comedic. They're, another source of stress,
right?
Another thing that's a problem in your friend group. It's never...
I think that's all part of the setup.
I don't...
It's a
really dark setup, and then a hilarious punchline.
It's so that they can do the joke and have it be justified.
But she talks, multiple times about how, depressed she was and how everyone thought that she was dead for, a year. And you talk with her about it, and it's, this really dark moment in her life, and you don't have the context yet for it.
I'm not saying that it's all comedic or that it doesn't make sense. I think the fact that they made the decision, I think Erica originally was conceived as a female character, and then they came up with the idea to have the joke where Toby has sex with her, and then that's why they did it.
They put a lot of serious, both subtle hints over the course of the game and serious discussion of her mental state before you knew the kind of person that she was, for me to believe that it was all for the joke.
Maybe we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Again on this
Maybe
podcast.
Maybe it's because the joke is so dumb and stupid that it colors my opinion of it. But
because you don't know.
Yeah, this is. I would like to be able to weigh in on this, but I honestly just did not get any of the none of the subtext got to me through my playthrough of the game, and I did. Well, first of all, I didn't realize you could talk to Erica, not by ordering a drink, until literally the last night.
Oh, well,
I didn't realize that I could talk to her because she's standing in the corner where there's nothing else.
Yes.
She's invisible to me.
You didn't talk to the old ladies and then get curious?
I talked to the old ladies one time on the first night that I was in the bar.
Yeah.
I couldn't see Erica from there. Was
yeah,
she
you can.
Oh, can you?
She's always standing right there.
Yep.
Didn't think about it.
Yeah. Old ladies, another creepy example. But we were discussing there are lots of different hints to the course of the game. It suggested a couple of times that she's also having nightmares later on. But that, in addition to the way that it's revealed at the end, where everyone sort of laughs off Toby being really regretful about the situation, and the game just sort of assumes that she's a man the entire time.
Right.
Not handled well at all. Still weird that I thought that they just made the active choice to just throw her in as a thing in 2011. It was...
Yeah. Well, I mean, then I feel like I need to be a little bit more educated on the subject.
Sure.
To actually speak on it. But it is definitely... I'm just gonna paint it in as broad strokes as possible. And if you're actually interested, I feel like you probably find information about this.
Yeah.
But that any type of what is seen as sort of sexual deviance from the norm, especially in old Japan, not old ancient, old as in 70s, 80s Japan, is something that was very frequently used for comedy or just generally looked down on in a way that's basically how how Western culture has evolved beyond finding people with disabilities funny.
Yeah, and then we're dwarfs.
Right.
Yeah.
In Japanese culture, they've largely at this point gotten past that kind of a thing, but I'm sure that there are elements of it that are still present.
It's the only thing that holds me back of it being an entirely negative expression of being transgender is how well the game seems to actually regard her as a person. Mm-hmm. She's maybe, even in comparison to your friends, the most active NPC that isn't one of the Catherines.
Yeah.
And how much she's involved and concerned. You really get the sense that she's actually an old friend.
She gets the I'm sure there's a specific example of this in terms of the trope.
Yeah.
But she gets this treatment where she's treated so poorly by everyone who is actually a shithead that you know that she is clearly not a shithead because the people who are dumb think that she is dumb. So it's the opposite effect where you're oh, all of these idiots treat her terribly because they are idiots. And anyone with a brain treats her well. And,
and this game had a lot of idiots.
Yes.
This was just stuffed full of idiots.
Yeah, it's a game full of shitheads.
That you kind of make slightly less shitty.
Right.
If you're nice. Except for the reporter guy who's just depressed and not really shitty ever.
Yeah, no, that is just a man who's been detached from the world for 4 years or however long you said?
Yeah.
I guess I'd have to play the game again to pick up on actually pick up on all the hints as they're happening.
Yeah.
Because when thinking back, I guess this also colors my opinion. The only ones I could really remember very well were just how they all acted when she came around, and they were just putting her off, telling her to go away.
If you're not bringing me a drink, get the hell out of here.
They were all uncomfortable, and that all became clear once you know that. But that all seemed like stuff that could have been added after they conceived of the joke. So I'm sure that there's probably stuff in there, since you said that there's lots of subtle hints.
Also, it's potentially off the cast stuff, but I think you might just be generally underestimating how much hormone therapy can actually change people's physical appearance after the fact.
I guess.
The concept of passing is a thing that is capable of happening.
Right.
It has language and has since the 70s and 80s.
Right. I guess maybe it's also just because she's a character model in a game.
Yeah.
But there's not even a shred of masculinity to her.
Nope, not a bit.
But
she's a little aggressive, but that's more that's not in the character model.
No, not really. I mean, not any more than just a normal woman would be.
She's kind of sexually aggressive too.
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know.
Yep. Any other NPCs that you guys found even remotely interesting?
Oh, I liked all the NPCs probably better than any of the characters.
What was
not because of their development. I just find them just some of the more entertaining NPCs
really
in games. They're just funny.
And the guy who always sat next to the TV, he had the glasses. He has a J name.
Yeah. The reporter?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the reporter. The sheep with glasses.
Yeah, sheep with glasses. Yeah. Is it Josh or something like that?
Oh, I wouldn't remember the names.
Yeah, I don't remember him.
I found myself liking both of them and wanting to get them through the nightmares.
Yeah. I don't.
What's his name? Singer from Real Big Fish.
Yeah. The mutton chops guy. The sheep with regal.
He's got the up
Oh, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He died in my playthrough.
I don't know how to keep him alive. I've played this game every time and he always dies.
I might just be misremembering it, but when Chad was playing, it seemed like he would talk to him and he would say way more than when I did.
Oh.
So, like, I don't know if
we could
there's...
pick up from my save file and see if he survives.
There
rest
might-
I
of the
won't
game.
put you through any of this.
I'm
There-
saying somebody else can do it.
There might be, like, a certain point that you have to talk to him
Well,
or
hold on.
something.
How, in your playthroughs of the game, did you game the meter, like, in later playthroughs?
Oh yeah, of course. Like the most recent playthrough was the first time that I went like 100% freedom.
Okay. Because I went, like, predominantly chaos. Like,
That's the same thing.
okay.
Yeah.
So, in that, like, but he still died in that situation?
Yes.
Because that seems to be the, like, that is what he aligns with.
But I don't
obviously.
think those things are related technically in the course of the game, although I can see why you'd believe that.
That would be
such.
too well thought out. This game.
Whoa.
And punch. But yeah,
I mean, I've been contrarian because it's one of your favorite games, but I actually really enjoyed it.
how'd you guys? I don't think you reached this. Andy, how did you feel about like the night? What's supposed to be the final night of the dreams, where you're escorting Kay.
That I liked that moment.
Me too.
I felt it weirdly like satisfying to see him in a different outfit.
Yeah.
Because you're in your normal clothes when
Right.
you do that stage, and it was
So the same outfit, but, like, a different one than you
right.
normally
You had the
on
pink
puzzles.
shirt and the red pants.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like an interesting like mix up to the formula of having to like escort a character through the puzzles. I actually really liked that concept. That's the more like the difference in kind I wish the game had, rather than just more.
Having
fat
watched a
blocks.
YouTube video of it, it seemed like it would be fun for someone who enjoyed the game.
Yeah, it got frustrating in places where she would just like jump up on the block you needed to be on,
Mhm.
but like
This is like the exact situation with the Tellus principle, where you guys both came in and were like, yeah, the co-op puzzle at the end seemed cool, because I was the only one who had gotten to it.
Mm.
It's a good comparison point, actually. Tellus principle, puzzle game that I am good at. Catherine, so not that at all.
Yeah. I understand this. Well, we've gone fucking long enough already.
Yeah, we've gone, like, pretty long.
pretty long.
It's about average.
I
Is
want-
there anything pressing that you wanted to discuss?
Oh, I could talk about tons of the like crazy why does this exist minutia of the game.
I want to hear from JJ why this game is among your top 5 favorites.
Because I legitimately love the mechanic set and have since the very first time that I played through the game.
Right.
Boom. The hypothetical punch from everyone else around me.
Right.
Because it intentionally tackles something so incredibly out there compared to like other games, even if it's like genre and type. Like the problem of infidelity is just not the thing a game that actually has a mechanic set would ever even remotely try to touch. Maybe within like the actual visual novel sphere, but I was and remain so far removed from that I don't really care, even if it is a trope within that context, because it's not a trope within the context that I played it in. And the way, just the visual style of the game throughout, the way that it constantly shifts itself, it's like the game is just an out-of-control fucking freeway truck with all these boxes flying around in the back, and you're behind the truck attempting to like catch up and like trying to figure out what's going to go on, and you're constantly stressed, and like madness is like slamming at the front of your car because the truck was like an Amazon truck that was delivering a lot of like various goods all across the United States. So there'd be like a baby and like a butt monster and like just like a dead sheep, and like even the sheep metaphor also unclear. There's just so many clearly intentional maddening choices in Catherine that amount to almost nothing overall. Catherine the experience is similar to Catherine the gameplay in that it is a puzzle that I have to constantly be mentally aware to even attempt to solve. And even if I'm like artificially imposing meaning on a lot of those arbitrary choices, I still found it incredibly fun to try and do that. And that's why I love Catherine.
It's an interesting, like, most specifically in response to your second point about how no game really has attempted to tackle something like this before it works sense. We're in the era where a game specifically about infidelity could exist, and probably does.
Yeah.
That is like a small independent game made in like Unity.
Yeah.
But Catherine probably has forever held on to the way that its experience plays because of the like nature of the market that it came out in. Because in 2011, where a game that actually explored an emotional topic was not a thing that you could just walk into a GameStop and pick up.
Yeah.
Catherine felt the need to include something more gameplay oriented. And because of their choice to make it this frantic puzzle game, and the fact that they got to transplant their already crazy aesthetic over like something that uses dream logic and therefore becomes even crazier and more difficult to comprehend, the experience that Catherine provides is probably a thing that exists just once and will never happen again, because it is that emotional story, and it is that unusual subject matter that could happen now, but that game would never have that type of gameplay.
Yeah. It requires, like, the demands for, like, hardcore, deep gamer mechanics, some kind of, like, taboo and addressed subject matter, and infinite money, and just, like, repressed madness to all sort of maelstrom together at the same time.
Yeah.
I would definitely agree that the best part of Catherine is the overall experience. But just a question that could pose, like, way too much debate to go on is, to me, this game feels more like... It feels like it's a TV show that tackles the subject matter of infidelity with a game attached to it.
It's a
not,
very special episode.
Yes,
of
and not
a
game that deals with the subject matter of infidelity. Because it doesn't have anything to do with the game part.
Well, I mean, that's where the choice comes in.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you still are imparting some force onto the game within that storyline. It's just not, like, the main focus of the mechanical part of the game.
Reading reviews and stuff, that was something that people brought up. And I was just like, it didn't really feel special to me that this game tackled that subject matter, because I feel it kind of feels like something that a TV show would talk about, and like the story is presented to you like it's a TV show.
Maybe, and I think this might be true, I don't think I've ever watched a television show.
Well, that might not be.
About infidelity?
No period, stop, Red, never seen a TV show.
It's something that
You've seen Breaking Bad.
When does he cheat on her?
He doesn't. She does. It's like a huge plot point.
Oh God, I don't remember.
Sorry, spoilers for Breaking Bad. That's a little bit... That actually might be a line I'm not willing to cross.
Spoilers for Breaking
Spoiling
Bad?
Breaking Bad. That show's phenomenal.
Alright, fine. We can bleep it in post.
But it's not trying to say anything. It's just it's a thing in story. It's a
and
driving
I also
force
feel
in the
like the plot handles it really simply as well.
By making one person a literal succubus?
Yeah.
That kind of undermines it a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, not to shit on the fact that you enjoyed it so much.
The answers that it provides aren't good, but I never expected a game about maddening blood sheep to provide me answers to infidelity.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, does it provide answers?
Honestly, if anything, the game is more forgiving toward infidelity than you would expect.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, it is a lot more, like... I mean, just sheerly based on the number of people that it implicates in it. Like, it basically is saying that it is borderline a societal norm for one person to cheat on another person in a
it's
relationship.
like everyone fucking cheats on somebody.
Right, at some point. Some people are very vocal and proud of it. Other people feel like trash. And I feel like that's actually a pretty good mirror of what society actually is. Lots of people do lots of bad things, and some of them are proud of it and others regret it a lot. and the game runs the gamut of in showing you characters, both NPCs and your own, and it says like, well, how do you react to this? How do you react to these people?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that whole element of it is handled really well up until the whole King of the Underworld thing.
Yes. Until they stopped raining in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good note. But I forgot because there was no organic way to put it in the podcast at any point. Are you guys aware that this game is explicitly set on a space colony?
What?
No, there's no organic way to put that in the game. So, I forgive the...
Okay, explain.
Every ending, every super true ending has some kind of ludicrous revelation for the narrative. In some cases it's King of the Underworld, and
I'm really hung up on that. I'm sorry.
No, you should be. It's weird. But the true neutral ending, when you get the space, what do they call it? Like space tourism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
You don't actually see him doing that or going on the plane, unfortunately. All that you see in that ending after you ended up bet money on the fight and get enough money to afford it and go on the tour is you standing on top of one of the buildings in the city that the game takes place in, and it's like one of the anime cutscenes, but you're just in a fucking space biome, and a huge futuristic freighter ship passes outside of the space biome, and he says something quippy about being yourself and walks off screen. That's the end of the game. It just reveals that you're in space.
I take it back. All the endings to Catherine are the most anime thing.
That's not anime. I feel like that's a special brand of crazy.
That's something...
They could just... 90% of your player base won't even know they're playing on a space station.
There's something anime about that. There is.
There's something Matrix about that.
I'm not well-versed enough in anime to argue this well, but there's something just so anime about that.
I think you're coming off too soon from the extremely hard-turn ending of Berserk. That is not a normal thing for people to just
We're entering really dangerous territory right now, guys.
Agreed. It's not normal for these shows to just end on oh, by the way, you're in space.
No, that's not. I'm not saying just because I'm saying it feels very anime to me is not implying that all anime have weird fucking endings that make no sense. It's just I don't think any other I don't feel like a Western cartoon would throw in that kind of a weird ending twist stinger, but I could totally see that coming from a Japanese product.
Whatever. But that, for reference, that is why the gods of the setting are so concerned about keeping fertility rates up and not letting people marry.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, it's because you're on a space colony and they need to keep the species around.
Well, there you go. Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, we're going to be continuing JJ September. Or actually, continuing and completing JJ September with 7?
You just call it
Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
On the Game Boy Advance, which is is it 7th? Or
it is in fact the 7th.
Right.
It is the first one in the US. It's really confusing because they wanted to introduce the game to people.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, that's totally understandable. And we'll talk about that on the Fire Emblem cast once again next time. Fire Emblem on the Game Boy Advance.
Will Chad break entirely?
Yeah, I could be replaced with a host robot.
You just gotta hold out for October.
I know, I'm pumped.
All the horror games.
If you want to get a hold of us, you can contact us at noclippodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter @noclip, our website noclippodcast.com, on YouTube as just NoClip, and if at all possible, leave a rating and a review on iTunes. Particularly if you think that we're great. If you think we suck, I'm just banking on the fact that you won't get to the end and be like, oh, I should go review them negatively.
I don't know. A lot of podcasts end with these sort of stingers. I can see someone being vindictive enough.
Just assuming that we're going to do... Oh, listening to the end to get the
just scrubbing all the way to 2 minutes before the end of the cast and being like, gotcha! I know where you live!
I know this is sudden, but here's some trivia for you, as you seem to have finished the episode. Do you know where the name NoClip comes from?
No-clip typically refers to giving the player character the ability to move through the geometry of the map in a game, and was used primarily by developers for debugging purposes. The term became popular in the communities for id Software's games like Doom, but likely originated in their platform effort, Commander Kane. And that was the no-clip trivia for tonight.